Next up is a question from Daniel. It says, I have a great match and structure, but very limited investment options.
Wait, are you talking about it sounds like you're saying a match instructor? So
Sorry.
Is that like a dating?
Match and structure.
Yeah. We can start this over.
Match and structure.
I
was like, is this a dating service?
I have a great match instructor.
I was like, okay, match and structure. Okay.
Yes, so I believe he's talking about his 401k.
Yep. Okay.
So it says, I have a great match and structure for my 401k, but very limited investment options. As a 28-year-old, should I go low-cost S&P 500 index fund or high-fee target date fund?
Let me give you the disclaimer, Daniel, because that's we have a culture of compliance here. We cannot give you any specific investment advice. So without knowing your personal circumstances or situation, we can't tell you which investment option would be best for you. However, we can talk about instances in which we've seen really good matching, really good structure, not the greatest investment options, or maybe not options that make the most sense. How do you navigate that, Brian? Like, what do you think about when the options are, maybe they're few options or maybe they're not great options? How do you look at the whole pile and say, okay, well, that's the least stinky pile of it?
Daniel's already doing some of those early steps on that. I love, maybe it's my CPA background, but whenever I can pull out a T chart where I'm going to put the pros on the left and the cons on the right, it's an exciting thing. And you've already started doing that, Daniel, because you've already got in the pro column that, hey, this thing's got a good match. It's got a strong structure. That's good, but over on the con, you got limited investment choices. And what you're quickly going to realize, by the way, if you're putting weight to these decision things, the match, if there's a good match, well, I even built it into my plan of the financial order of operations, moneyguy.com/resources. Step number 2, if there's a great match from your employer where they're offering you 50% guaranteed rate of return on a 50 cents for every dollar that you put in, or maybe it's as good as a dollar for dollar or 100% guaranteed rate of return, that one, you next to match, you put a check mark, you put another check mark, you put another check mark, because that one is worth like a lot. And that's going to push put its thumb on the scale heavily. But then when you get down to the what do you actually do with this money? It's not uncommon, because you said you have an index fund that's really good.
He said, should I do low cost S&P or he said high cost target retirement fund?
Yeah, but I'm just giving an experience share. It's not uncommon that we get a client who comes in and we look at their 401k and we go, man, this must have been a golf buddy who set this up, because this 401k has a great match. But man, these investment choices are horrible. And we'll sometimes say, well, what is good in there? Let's triage and try to figure out what actually we love in here. And you're like, oh, well, they have a good bond fund in here. We'll use that bond fund because we need fixed income. This person's in their 50s. But for you, Daniel, if you're young and you've triaged it and you look at it and you go, hey, well, at least they have a low cost index fund. Now, we like, and this shows me you listen to our content, we do like target retirement funds, but we like index target retirement funds, because index target retirement funds do all the great things that index funds do. They're low cost, they're very tax efficient. Not that you have to worry about that in a 401k as much, but it's just it's a good thing all around. But when you have a loaded up target retirement, which maybe its fees are higher than 70 basis points.
I was going to say, it all depends on, it's sort of relativity, right? Because he may be looking at his index fund and be, oh, that's 0.01. Well, then there's this target retirement fund, it's 0.4. Yeah, that seems a lot higher than 0.1, but that wouldn't be like a crazy expense ratio for a target retirement fund. So it's, you know what I mean? If it's like a 1% or a 0.7%, that would be expensive. So some of it's got to be a relative assessment.
You've got to assess it. And then, look, if there is a huge difference between these, like say the target retirement's greater than 1% and then the index fund is practically free, then obviously you've got to love the one you're with and maximize the opportunity. But just make sure, and this is something, don't compartmentalize every section of your financial life. You need to look at all of your financial assets together, because that's where you can maybe figure out if there's a tax location game that you can be playing with this, in addition to the asset allocation that you're putting into your 401k.
I just love target retirement funds because...
Index target retirement funds.
Yep. I love target retirement solutions because it removes the opportunity for me to screw up the behavior, right? Like the thing that at 28, what I really want to focus on is my savings rate. What am I saving? 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 In 2022, if you own the S&P 500 fund, maybe you're totally locked in. You're like, hey, I'm not going to sell. I'm not going to freak out. I'm not going to go try to jump around. And that's going to be great. But if you can reframe and think, hey, I got this target retirement fund, and that's just going to I know it's going to do what it's supposed to do, and it's going to shoot for this target. I can focus on my savings rate until it makes sense for me to focus on the bigger allocation. That's the reason why we often talk about those over indices.
But I will say, there's something that shocked me. We've done content on this. I would encourage, and this is something Daniel ought to do too, is go out and look at the biggest provider of index target retirement funds. Like I'm talking about Fidelity, Vanguard, Charles Schwab. Go look at the asset allocation of their different offerings. The ones that are 30 years out, the ones that are 15 years out, the ones that are right now for retirees. There is a broad difference between those providers. So you need to do the same thing, Daniel. Go pull those 3 big providers, but then also lay it right next to what yours are. And I've been shocked. And then make sure that that matches what your goals are, because there has been quite a bit of spread between like how much bonds some of these target retirement funds have versus equities. You need to make sure you don't get to skip due diligence. Just like you don't skip leg day, you don't skip due diligence to make sure the asset allocation reflects what you actually think is important.
Love it.